The evolution of governments and societies in Europe are affected by conflict and cooperation all of the time. This can make or break a nation or empire and test its strength. Sparta versus Athens, cooperation together as allies. The Spartan and Athenian governments were both pressured into joining the Hellenic Alliance, which was an alliance of Greek city-states that were joining together to take a stand against the Persians during the Persian War. Both city-states had a large role in the Congress of this alliance, but all of the defensive strategies for the alliance were thought of and brought into action using all the city/states ideas in different militaries. Sparta and Athens were allies in times of need. An example of their joint partnership would be the Battle of Plataea. During this battle, the militaries fought side by side. This battle ended Persian invasions into Greece. This combined effort by Sparta and Athens helped keep their cities safe from their enemies. It also allowed for their governments to keep running the way they wanted it to without the influence or control from Persia or other enemies surrounding them. But they did not stay allies for a long time after this. Sparta versus Athens, civil war between the city-states. The Spartan and Athenian governments did not always get along and work together. After they fought together in the Persian War, their governments started to clash again. As a result of this, a civil war started between the city-states. This war was fought by Athens and its empire against the Peloponnesian League led by Sparta. The war went on and off for about 28 years and was broken down into three parts. Part 1, sometimes called the Archidamian War, consisted of Sparta launching repeated invasions on Athens, but Athens took advantage of its naval supremacy to raid the coast of Peloponnese, attempting to suppress signs of unrest in his empire. Part 2 included Athens dispatching a massive expeditionary force that failed disastrously, with the destruction of its entire force in 413 BC. And finally, Part 3. This is when Sparta received support from Persia and deprived Athens of naval supremacy. The destruction of Athens' fleet in Aegospotami ended the war. Athens surrendered in the following year. The result of the Athenian and Spartan governments and peoples going head-to-head at war was that Athens lost its empire and consequently the source of revenue. This had supported its dominant navy. Athens not only lost its empire from this, but also Sparta gained political dominance in Greece after this war. This helped the Spartan government and people become more powerful and feared across Greece. The Roman Empire, religion versus government. The Roman Empire was constantly taking over new countries or territories during its reign. This was good and bad for the Roman Empire in a few ways. Where religion is concerned, people usually did not want their territory to be taken over. Whenever one was, though, the people within it were allowed to keep their religion unless they only believed in one God, for example, Christianity. If you were a person who was a Christian, you might be persecuted in one way or another for this. To Romans, religion was less a spiritual experience than a contractual relationship between mankind and the forces, which were believed to control people's existence and well-being. The Romans had difficulty in taking to the idea of a single, all-powerful God. They thought Christianity was dangerous. Another part of this that brought up conflict was that Christians refused to perform Caesar worship, which to the Romans demonstrated their disloyalty to their rulers. This led to more persecution of Christians. The conflict between religion and the government was one of the reasons for the fall of the Roman Empire. Also, because Rome kept acquiring more land, they couldn't handle it all, and it got too big to control. This is another reason for the fall of the Roman Empire. The European Union, governments working together. The European Union is a partnership consisting of 27 governments working together to regulate various aspects of Europe. These countries include France, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Germany, Spain, and Sweden. The European Union has delivered half a century of peace, stability, prosperity, and helped raise living standards within Europe. This is all because of the government sending representatives into the European Union's councils and parliament, and everyone working together to better things throughout Europe. The EU has some of the highest environmental standards in the world and prioritizes climate change, pollution, and using natural resources. One of the many goals of the EU is to move people and goods quickly, efficiently, and cheaply across Europe. The European Union has been working well for half a century and is still doing so today due to the cooperation of European governments and representatives throughout Europe. The United Nations, conflict between governments. The United Nations is an organization made up of various countries from around the world. Their goal is to prevent war and keep peace by negotiating and talking. This goal of theirs works sometimes, but not all the time. Within the United Nations, 5 countries can veto any proposal brought forth to the UN. These countries are France, Russia, China, the UK, and the United States. In the 20th century, the U.S. used its veto over 70 times. On the majority of occasions, the U.S. vetoed resolutions that were favored by the majority of world's nations. An example of this is that the U.S. has vetoed multiple resolutions such as to set up the International Criminal Court in 2001 and to end the U.S.'s 40-year embargo of Cuba. The U.S.'s opposition to so many resolutions has created and heightened tension between the U.S. government and other countries' governments and members of the UN. The U.S. is the only country to use its veto power. Some problems end up not being fixed because of a powerful country vetoing an idea for action, which builds more tension throughout countries instead of solving it. The United Nations, in a lot of people's eyes, is not a useful organization and they believe that it's going nowhere. Clearly, conflict and cooperation between religion, science, and government impact the growth of nations and empires of Europe throughout history. Conflict can lead to cities losing their empire and worldwide organizations failing, yet cooperation leads to great success to help advance countries and make them more powerful.